And we're back. This is Professor Scott Plum with the Minnesota Sales Institute with Bill Hellkamp of Reach Development Systems.
Thanks, Scott. It's really great to be with you again and all of our listeners as well. Industry event canceled. Trade show canceled. Networking breakfast canceled. Now what do I do? Where can I go to get new names to prospect? On today's show, Scott and I will discuss the sources for customers while in lockdown and much more on episode 406 of the Get in the Door podcast. Well, we're going to start this week with our book club, and we're talking about The Magic of Thinking Big by David J. Schwartz. Chapter 3 is called Build Confidence and Destroy Fear. He starts it off strong in saying that we need to recognize that fear is real. I know a lot of people say, well, that fear is nothing, just ignore it. But I think emotionally, fear is real, and we need to understand that in order to conquer it, and that fear is success enemy number one. And I would agree with that 100%. What do you think, Scott?
It is. Fear is a learned behavior, and it kind of counterintuitive to the confidence is also a learned behavior. So confidence is acquired by a decision that we make, finding evidence to support it, and then creating action to follow it. And action conquers fear. And this chapter talks a lot about really identifying, again, some of our fears, overcoming our fears, and then building the confidence when we overcome the fears.
You know, you said that fear is a learned thing. I don't think it always is. You know, I look at myself, I look at some of my kids and watching them grow up, and I do think there's a more timid nature to some people than others. But I absolutely agree with you that confidence has to be acquired. You need to build up that confidence. If you don't have it, you need to find ways to do that. And you mentioned action cures fear. I think that's the strongest way we can do it. You've got to go out and do something in small bites that you're afraid of until you can learn to overcome whatever those innate fears are.
One of the blogs that I wrote, and I'll put it on the show notes, is we are a decision maker. All of us are decision makers. Sometimes salespeople call companies and they want to find a decision maker, but we really kind of lose focus that we're a decision maker. We're a decision maker on what we do and don't do. And when we don't make the decision to overcome fear and we postpone action, on the other hand, we fertilize the fear. And I know one book that you've recommended, As a Man Thinketh. You talked about the fertile mind that we have. And if we're not planting seeds of growth, the weeds will take over. And it's really a great book with digestible nuggets of information that we can incorporate every single day. And fear is something that we need to recognize, but we also need to look at what are the consequences if we don't do it, because everything we want is on the other side of fear.
You know, our memory banks talks a lot about our thought process. And are you replaying negative events and fearful events, or are you replaying positive events? And you make that decision. And he says there's two things you need to do: deposit only positive thoughts and withdraw only positive thoughts. And I think the most important way I can do that is to be thankful every day. Think about at the end of your day, the end of your work day, the end of your full day, and you're going to bed. Think about 3 things that you're thankful for, and you'll start to turn around your attitude into being more positive and less fearful.
I think we generally find what we're looking for.
That's right. That's right.
If it's like some companies come up with market research and we go, well, we got to make a point to support this position, and we got to do some market research to justify this position. So we're doing market research to find something that we already believe.
That's right. That's right. And I need to prove it to my boss what I already thought.
Yeah. You know. When instead of looking at it going, what are we really looking for here? And when we really decide what we're looking for, we have a better chance of finding it instead of having faith in the negative is really what fear is.
Right. And I'll tell you what, we're talking about this during this time of this COVID-19 crisis. We're coming hopefully to the end of the first wave of this, and governors are starting to open up states, but people are still fearful. They're fearful to talk to each other. They're fearful to see each other. We're not shaking hands. And I think this fear has magnified. David talks about fear magnifying. Hesitation magnifies fear. And I think we've seen that as people have not known what to do, their fears have only magnified because that's all they're focused on.
Right. Right. In the book, he lists the type of fears, and there's a great list of ones. And if you didn't have them, then maybe you can learn a few. What you said down.
Yeah, I didn't think I had that one, but now I find
like, the last chapter is on excuses, and I'm not going to submit any ones that are not listed here because
right.
I'll try that one.
Yeah.
But I could really relate to fear number 6, which is the fear of what other people think. Greatest weakness that salespeople have is a high need for approval. They really want to be liked. And they're taught this in sales training. It's like people like to do business with people that they like that are like them.
Right.
Okay, I don't disagree with that, but let's not have that as a destination. The destination is to really earn their respect so that a prospect has faith in you, and you might have to say something to a prospect or ask a question to a prospect that's going to make them upset. The point is that sometimes we need to challenge our prospects, because if we don't challenge our prospects on their current position, we won't be able to change them, and they won't be able to change and grow and have a better solution, because complacency works on both sides of the aisle. It works on the same side as salespeople, and it works on the same side as prospects when we get so comfortable in our comfort zone that we don't make a change. So really work on whose approval do you seek, and what are the consequences of limiting your behavior based on your fear. And that's going to be preventing a sale. It's going to be preventing building a relationship. It's going to prevent working with a customer and a client on changing their current position to have a greater outcome. And the rewards that you will receive of making that sale to support you, your family, your future, your children, everything, you will not receive that because you're limiting your behavior on fear. And fear, again, is false evidence appearing real. We've all heard that many, many times.
All right. Now, so Dr. Schwartz talks about to think confidently, act confidently, and he gives us 5 tips on acting confidently. I'll go through a couple of those and then let you finish it off.
Sure.
He says to be a front row seater. Don't be hiding in the back row. And remember, we did that in high school because we didn't study, and so we didn't want to raise our hand. Well, that's not true in business. Get into the front row. You're going to be more activated by whatever you see. Be out front. And then the second thing he says is practice making eye contact. Quit looking down. So many people can't. There's an old joke is, how do you know an outgoing Minnesotan? He looks at your shoes while he's talking to you instead of his own. And so make eye contact. We trust people that look us in the eye and have a firmness of conviction, and that will help you to be more confident. What are the other 3?
Well, we got one that says walk 25% faster. And I've got a saying, I never hire someone who walks slow. Never hire a salesperson, a candidate that walks slow, because I walk with a tremendous amount of urgency. I got someplace to be.
Right.
I want to get there. I don't have time to waste, dilly-dallying, going for a stroll. I walk pretty fast. And
I think John Maxwell talks about that in one of his books, that he didn't get a job. He and his friend went for a job interview just to sweep the floor someplace.
Yeah.
And the boss said, hey, come to the back. And John sauntered to the back, and his friend almost ran to the back, and he hired his friend.
Wow. Perfect.
And he said, because you got he said, you got an attitude of you're too relaxed.
Meandering. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Another one is practice speaking up. Sit in the front row, get in, be there participating in a session. I'm grateful to have 2 young sisters in my life. And when they were at a young, impressionable age, I said, girls, when you're at school and somebody says, who wants to read out loud, take that opportunity to read out loud. When it comes to doing work at the board, go to the board and work on the board and participate in class, because your job as a student is to learn. And the only way that you're going to learn is to make mistakes. And I think as salespeople, we need to be able to role play in a safe environment, in a conference room with a colleague, with a sales manager. It doesn't cost us anything. We might be embarrassed, true, but the mistakes out on the field are going to cost you thousands.
Right.
And the last one is smile big. And that one's a tough one these days with these masks, because you can't tell. I don't know if they're smiling at me or not. Are they happy or
lift my mask long enough to smile at you? But you can smile with your eyes, and people can read you pretty well. And I think that smiling helps us gain confidence, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not afraid of people. Excellent chapter. This segment of the Get in the Door podcast is brought to you by Steve Kloida's book, The Art of Prospecting, Your Guide to Getting in the Door. Steve Kloida was known internationally for increasing salespeople's ability to make solid appointments with qualified prospects. You too can learn this essential skill by ordering a copy of his superb book, The Art of Prospecting, Your Guide to Getting in the Door. In this book, Steve shares the top strategies and tactics he has developed, implemented, and personally tested with more than 1 million sales and prospecting calls. You can get his book on the website, theprospectingexpert.com. In addition, check out his other great online resources. Instant Sales Coaching, which will guide you through 5 online success modules. A guided prospecting process entitled Call Reluctance Transformer, and the Magnetic Selling Strategies Workbook, a detailed step-by-step guide to increasing your sales. Get any of these valuable resources at theprospectingexpert.com. Now, one thing we wanted to add to Steve Kloida's advertisement there is that he's got a special offer. If you want to track your sales and prospecting activity right now for free, you can download the Daily Sales Tracker. Go to dailysalestracker.com for that opportunity.
Bill, I tell you, our Operation Re-engagement is flourishing.
Excellent.
Yeah, past episodes are being downloaded as fast as the new ones. And I'm looking at the numbers today, and within 24 hours, we have received 50% downloads of the first episode that we did a month ago.
Wow.
And it's just amazing to see the new episodes being downloaded. Our listeners are re-engaged and downloading future episodes and sharing with other people. So if you're a salesperson and you've got colleagues on your team, share the podcast with them. Best thing to do is go to the website, getinthedoorpodcast.com, go to iTunes, you can download, you can subscribe there, and look at some of those past episodes. As Bill and I talk about what's relevant in today's marketplace, new knowledge is going to be introduced. It's up to you to apply it. If you don't apply it, you're not going to get a different outcome.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I tell you what, there's nothing better for that quiet time than to pop in a podcast, start your day off with a podcast. We don't have the window time maybe that we used to. Some of you do. But you need to get your mind right before you start to make the calls and start your day. I did get a message from Mike in Albany, New York through LinkedIn, and he said, "Thanks for the fresh new podcast. I'm learning a ton and love the content. I listen to each podcast at least twice to catch all of the tips. You and Scott play off each other really well. Keep it coming." So we will.
Great.
We'll keep
That's
it coming.
Great. Thanks,
Yeah.
Mike.
Well, our topic for today is sources for customers while in lockdown. And I've had a lot of people ask me, what are you doing differently in the lockdown? One of those things is a lot of my sources for contacts are gone. So where can we go to look for contacts? We got no trade show. The networking events are gone. Maybe there's no industry meetings. And I'll tell you, even if you have it online, you can't really meet people very well. I've tried to go to some of these online meet and greets, and it's just not the same. So let's talk about some of the options you have. One of the things I'm really doing is digging into my LinkedIn. I'm really starting to work my contacts and working the contacts of people that I know. There's a lot of people, hopefully, on your LinkedIn contacts that you really haven't talked to. Go out and start talking to them. Find out who they know. Find out who they're talking to and who's still in business that you could start to do business with. You can also use the search bar in LinkedIn. Put in the title. For me, it's sales manager, sales leaders, a divisional sales manager, something like that. Put in a location. For me, I entered Minneapolis and it said, how about the greater Minneapolis-St. Paul area? Excellent. I can do that. I got 193,000 results. And then I started to narrow down the search, went down to 76,000. I can continue to narrow it down from there. But there's a lot of contacts out there on LinkedIn that you can have access to, especially those contacts of close contacts. So that's my first suggestion. Really work your LinkedIn contact.
That's great advice. I think when you send an invite to people that you don't know, that you want to get to know, now's a good time to do that. And in that invite, I usually will add a line of, I work with companies that believe there are more opportunities out in the marketplace and they want to be able to work on developing their sales team to leverage those into close commitments. If that's something that you're interested in talking about now or in the future, I welcome the opportunity to get linked in. It may be a little bit more of a solicitation. It may be a little bit forward for some individuals, but when they accept the invite, they know where I'm coming from. We've uncovered the terms of our relationship and what my intent is on getting linked in. They've also confirmed to me that the goal that I stated is one that they have.
Right.
And then in the future, I will send them an invite asking them if they're available for a 15-minute talk. And together,
you've laid it out for them, right? So
right.
You've been real. And I'll tell you, I do not like the ones that first of all, they contact me and don't send any note. I'm already suspicious of them. Send me a note and say, hey, look, here's why I want to contact you. And then second of all, if they don't send me a note and I look at their title and they help consultants to increase their business,
Yikes.
I know what they're doing. And
Yeah.
they're not talking to me because they want to meet with me. They want to sell to me. And that's okay,
It is.
but be upfront.
Right. It is. I will look at them also. I'll see who else they're connected to. I can tell sometimes if they're a listener, even if they don't put a note in, that they're a listener of the podcast. So I accept those, of course. But I also see what their intent is. I'll accept them. But if they pitch me right away and they do it in a way where they're going to help me, like I have a problem and that I'm drowning and they haven't even talked to me and they're being assumptive, as folks know about the word help with me, then do. I do. I remove them. I block them, game over. And in reality, they're not even the ones sending the LinkedIn invites. So they have no idea that you just rejected their LinkedIn invite. They've hired somebody else to do it. There's no relationship there, and it's not going to improve. That's my belief.
Good
I
point.
I welcome emails and letters.
Yeah, good point. Well, we always welcome that, right? We can be wrong. Look through your old customer records too. Who are you doing business? Who did you used to do business with that your company doesn't do business with anymore? Chances are, I think the statistics are 67% of customers leave because they're neglected. They're not angry. They're not PO'd. They didn't get a bad experience. They just didn't get called back. So they may welcome your call. And then also look at the records of the former territory. The salesperson had your territory before. There might be some real gems in there. Maybe they went away with that salesperson when they left, but they're happy to come back. So who aren't you doing business with anymore?
And here's another thing to keep in mind on that note is your message, your solution has got to evolve over time as the market changes. And if you're in the business of working with prospects and clients on consulting and you don't stay in touch with them, they may get the perception that your content is no longer relevant in the marketplace. It's good 2.5 years ago when they hired you or 5 years ago when they hired you, staying in touch with them reminds them that your content and your solution is still relevant in today's marketplace. I've seen a lot of different repositioning of products and services in the marketplace by salespeople. I saw one with a real estate agent where they were offering the house and they were positioning it differently. They were saying, well, here's a room that could be used as a home office. Here's one that could be used as a home gym. Here's a family room / entertainment education resource room for your children. The rooms in the house were being repositioned for today's times. It's the same house as it was 6 months ago, as it was a year ago. And it's something that salespeople have got to keep in mind always is that value is defined by the prospect's application of the service, not the specifications.
Yep. And their times have changed. It's 4 bedrooms, 2 baths is not enough.
One of our members of PSA, Sean Gardner with BNC National Bank, described his services of a small community business bank during a times when the government is offering loans, forgivable loans to businesses, and he introduced himself and highlighted that service that he's offering right now. Guess what? Everything that he did 6 months ago or a year ago is still the same. That relationship is being repositioned for today's times, today's marketplace, and the advantages of having that relationship and the value of having that relationship is being repositioned.
Yep.
And now prospects are seeing Sean differently because what he does. And I really give him kudos for really repositioning what he does to build those relationships. So now is a real time to build relationships, to build a network, like Bill said, on connecting with people on LinkedIn. And once things get back to normal as they can be, or the new normal, whatever you want to believe, then that's when we can start having the conversations, and then we can start working on discovering ways to work together past that. But really work on building your universe at this time.
Well, I'd call that, cross-selling and upselling, right? This repositioning that you're talking about is classic cross-selling and saying, okay, look at my company in a new way. What else could I be selling to you? Who else should I be talking to in your organization? So my recommendation for new business is new business within the people that you're already working with. Almost all the salespeople I know have 1 or 2 contacts in their key companies. They're not working with 6 different people. And when that person leaves, they're in trouble.
Exactly.
So it's a great time to build those relationships in an organization. The question I ask is, who should I get to know in your company? I love working with you, Larry. Who else should I get to know in your company? And salespeople don't ask that enough. That's a referral question, and they They lie. They say they get referrals. They don't. And then expand the conversations with current customers, and that's the repositioning.
Yeah.
Hey, did you think about using us this way? Did you think about using us that way? How can we do something differently or better with you? And what new challenges are you facing based on this whole environment?
I'd like to add on that, Bill. I think, sometimes people can get defensive. Who else should I know? They can get guarded because they want to be the primary contact, of course. And that's great, and it's nice to have that loyalty. Another question you can ask is, I'm kind of curious, how do you go about making decisions like this around here? And now you're learning more about the process and the people that are involved. And then with that, you're going to be able to identify who you want to get introduced to. Now, you have to be respectful of the conversation that you're having with your prospect and respect their position and let them know that you want to make them look like the hero in the conversation, but know more about the process. And the more transparent they are with you, the more trust they have in you, the more respect that they have working with you to provide a solution. Another thing you can use is third-party stories. Other companies are using our service like this. Is that something you've ever considered, or are you interested in how other companies are using our services at this time?
Yep. Now
you're creating that interest and that curiosity in the prospect's mind, and they're going, yeah, please tell me, how else are they using it? Well, some companies are doing this and that, and then you're giving these examples of applications, again, of the specs that you offer in your product or service, and the value is then being planted and suggested and interpreted by the prospect to justify the price.
Right. And the other thing you have to understand is when you do that, if you do it for 10 clients, maybe 2 of them will bite. Maybe only one. Don't expect a one-for-one every time I ask a thoughtful question or put something forward as a new way of doing business that they're going to jump at the chance. They get used to using you in one way, and sometimes they can't see that. And I love that suggestion of saying, here's how other companies are using our services. Have you ever thought about that? It creates a story that they can remember, and it makes it more accessible to them and not so scary. Another idea is to work more closely with marketing. One of the things, I've done a number of projects with marketing people, and it is amazing to me that marketing and sales don't talk more often. Quite often, we found that marketing is marketing the wrong things, and salespeople don't even know what they're marketing, and they're selling different things. So they get a lead, say marketing is saying, here's our 3 major benefits, X, Y, Z. And then they'll get a lead and they'll give it to the salesperson, and the salesperson will say, hey, let's talk about ABC. And the person who called in said, well, I thought you guys were selling X, Y, Z. Yeah. And they're all screwed up, and there's no contact. So make sure you know what they're getting marketed to, what the marketing process is, and start to look into new ways to market, newsletters, podcasts, personalized emails. You've got to start using the other tools that you have available to you.
I'm amazing how salespeople get in the way of their own sale. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a great question to ask anybody that calls in is, so I'm kind of curious, what made you decide to call in today? I want to know what they saw. I want to know what was the reason that they called, the motivation that they called. Something happened a minute or two before they picked up the phone and called you. Something happened. I want to know what that is.
Well, it goes to that core problem that salespeople have. I told you the core problem. That was the salesperson wants to tell them about ABC. Mm-hmm. And you've got the core solution, and that is to ask a question versus starting to tell. And too many salespeople want to assume they know what the customer needs and start to tell them. And that was a classic example of that. And then my final thought is referrals. Salespeople lie and say they ask for referrals all the time. They don't. I found the most valuable way I can ask for referrals is a top 10 or top 20 potential client list. Put together a list of the top 10 companies you want to work with, and everybody you talk to, show them that list and say, here's the companies I want to work with. Do you know anybody there? And it really starts to help you focus. You won't get the head of whatever department you really want, but you'll get somebody that you can start to expand, put that crowbar in, and start to expand that selling gap in. So really ask for referrals. And the tool I use, or the tool where you can look into this more, is my 2-minute selling tip number 31 called Know Your Top 10. And we'll put a link to that in our show notes.
Yeah, I think another thing you can even go back to your first point, is using LinkedIn, and using LinkedIn to ask for referrals. Look at your existing network, and you could send them a brief email. And if you're connected to them, you have their email address in most cases. and just compliment them, saying, I really enjoy having you as part of my LinkedIn network. I really enjoy working with you or connecting with you. I would really like to be able to meet more people like you, because I'm guessing that you hang around that people that are like you. And I'd be grateful if you could introduce me to some of the people that you think I should meet, or other people that would enjoy working with me like you and I have worked together. I'd be grateful for any inductions. Who do you know? Please forward this email on to them, copy me on it, and I'll follow up with a phone call and schedule it and go from there.
You have to initiate the referral process. The customers aren't going to go, oh, Bill, I just love you so much. Here, let me give you 5 names. They just don't think that way.
Some do, but not a lot.
Yeah, they're few and far between. But It's nice when they do, but you really need to just initiate it. Say, hey, Scott, I've enjoyed working with you. Who else do you know that I should be talking to? And who else do you hang around with? Like you say, that like hanging around with like, and a guy that's been in sales, he's been in sales at a number of companies, and he knows a lot of people.
What about the belief, Bill, that how can I ask for a referral? They didn't buy from me. I hear that a lot from salespeople, like, how can I ask them for a referral? They didn't buy anything from me.
Yeah.
And I go, and? So what's the downfall? I mean, maybe they know somebody that would buy from you. I mean, if somebody's calling me and they're pitching me on something that I have no need for, it's quite possible that I might know somebody else that has a need.
Right.
If they don't ask for that introduction, I'm not going to make that commitment.
Well, here's the reason they don't do that. They think a no means I hate you.
You're right. Oh, yeah.
Right. It's like a friend of mine says, when you go to the restaurant, the waitress says, do you want ketchup? And you say no. She doesn't think, oh, they hate me because they don't want ketchup. They just don't use ketchup, right?
Right. So true.
But so many salespeople say, oh, if they didn't want to talk to me, they don't like me, and therefore they won't give me a referral or whatever. They just didn't have, you couldn't find the need that matched your product at the time. Move on.
Right. But there was trust established there, but there was no need. So let's
okay.
leverage that trust and let's get an introduction.
That's okay. Yep. So referrals, use your LinkedIn more effectively, look at old customers, talk to your current customers about other products, cross-selling and upselling. Those are some really good ways to increase your sales during this time of lockdown.
Our gold nugget today is from Og Mandino. Procrastination I will destroy with action. Doubt I will bury under faith. Fear I will dismember with confidence.
Wow. He's into busting it up, right? I think that when I looked at that quote, I thought, what great action words: destroy, bury, dismember. He is not thinking lightly about failure as something that you can kind of hold under yourself, and you can't let it live within you. You've got to destroy, bury, dismember it, and take intentional action. I just think that's a great quote.
He's
the greatest salesman in the world. Is he?
Yeah, that's his book, and it's a fabulous book. If you haven't had a chance to read it, it was written, I think, in the 30s. There's 10 scrolls in that book, and each one of them has a very powerful message.
Yep, and it's a powerful message about your own mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about, I'm going to make more calls. It's all about what's happening between your ears, and hopefully that's coming through in this whole podcast, in this series of podcasts. Most of this is about how you think about yourself, how you visualize yourself, how you feel when you make those calls or don't make those calls. It's what's going on between your ears that is going to make or break you in sales.
All the information in this show will be available on our show notes, so look for that there, and that's getinthedoorpodcast.com.
And my website is reachdev.com, so if you want to get hold of me, and then also our contact, there's a phone number to contact Scott or I in the show notes as well. Next week, we're going to start off with Chapter 4 of The Magic of Thinking Big, how to think big. So he's told us to do it, but now he's going to tell us how we should think big.
I love it. The implementation step. Our topic is also going to be on fighting commoditization, which I think is very relevant in today's marketplace. So we look forward to sharing those tips and advice with you at our next episode of Get in the Door Podcast.